right, welcome to episode 23 of the At Bat podcast presented by War Media, where we give you our thoughts on the latest Chicago baseball news, as well as take a trip around the league. So this week we have Gabe Wilkins, another member of the War family, filling in for Miles, who's in Israel, and he's going to be there for a week. And we're definitely I'm gonna stitch some content on here because he's gonna send me some videos. He's over there helping some players kind of get. I think they're training for I think this is their first year in Israel. Some of the players and Miles has been there before. He's played over there. So he's kind of like, he's kind of being like their I guess giving them advice and stuff of like how it is over there. So because he's been there and done that. So yeah, well, definitely I told him to send me some videos of him over there. I think he was going to send me something today, and he was like, my phone died and I got lost. So and I'm like, damn, in another country that's tough. So yeah. So we'll definitely be sitting on there. But Gabe, how you doing today, man? I know we were talking a little bit about the Sox, so you're feeling good after that win here today. We're recording this on a Wednesday, so.
Yeah, I'm feeling real good, man. It's a pleasure to be back on talking baseball as always, which you saw. Definitely after a White Sox winner, to take 2 out of 3 against one of the hottest teams, not only just in the American League, but all of baseball in the Seattle Mariners. That's huge, especially going into a 4-game series with Oakland. You capitalize on this road trip and you find a way to finish anywhere between 4-3 or 5-2. You would take that.
Oh yeah, I mean that, and that's how I was saying too, is that they had a big week, and it's not even been like just in the last 7 days, but it's just been in general. I mean, winners of 6 of their last 8. I mean, you the thing is with the Sox is like I feel like we've been here before a couple times, and you kind of want to like you kind of want to say, hey, the Sox are back, but then you kind of like if you say that, then you might they might. I feel like the last time is when they won like 2 against the Astros, right? And I'm like, man, are the Sox? Is this it? Like, are they finally back? And then all of a sudden they lost the last 2 games of that series, and then back to square one. So, I mean, the loss yesterday definitely was a little tough against the Mariners. We'll get into that series in a sec, but we'll rewind a little bit into the end of that Royal series, because winning that Royal series is kind of like from someone who's not familiar with these two teams. You're like, hey, it's just a better team, being the Royals, whatever. But I think it's such a big deal because of how the Royals have played the White Sox this year. So like, in kind of seeing that, how did you feel about finally beating the Royals in a series like that, and especially in this time of the year?
Well, it was good to close out the year strong against Kansas City. Kansas City has been a thorn in the White Sox side for pretty much all my life of following White Sox baseball and being the AL Central rival that they are. Whether they're competing in the thick of the AL Central race or not, as we know now that they're eliminated, they've always caused a lot of havoc. And they have a lot of young, talented players, such as Bobby Witt Jr., Michael Massey, MJ Melendez, of course, the veteran Salvador Perez, behind the plate. He has a loud bat as well. He always has some timely hits against the White Sox. I thought that was a huge series to find a way to win 2 out of 3, especially considering the way that series began. The way that Kansas City came in, was hitting home runs left and right. Where, Nick Prado got hot. That was another young guy that's on their roster, left-handed bat with some pop. I thought that was huge. I like the way being at that game when they won on Thursday of last week, being at that game, seeing the way that Cueto was able to give them, yet another quality start. Didn't have his best stuff, but to be able to hold them to just 1 run, I thought was great. I thought Elvis Andrus stepped up and had some big-time hits in that game. Andrew Vaughn hitting the home run, AJ Pollock. I really believe that's when we began to see him starting to turn the corner for the better, as we see like his powers coming. And typically just looking at his numbers and home runs by the month in the season, he tends to hit the majority of his home runs in September and October. And that's the type of things that the White Sox are going to need, especially when they lack a lot of power. But to close out the year against Kansas City, taking 2 out of 3, when Kansas City took the season series 10-9 out of the 19 matchups for the 2nd year in a row, you'll take those wins any way you can get them, especially when you're in a division race.
No, yeah. I mean, it's fun, and it's funny because you watch those games and you're thinking like, yeah, like you said, the Royals are out of it, whatever, right? But the roster of the Royals is actually better when you really look at it, when you play them, right? It's like they're still a couple years away from being competitive, but the types of players they have there, they have a lot of talent. You mentioned Melendez, you mentioned Witt. And the thing is, too, is like the pitching staff also for a team in their position, I think they have some impressive arms. I mean, Brady Singer has pitched well against you guys all season.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's a guy that, that could, if he can pitch like that, against the lineup like the Sox, obviously haven't been healthy the whole year, but some of the batters in there, obviously like Jose Abreu, like if he, he can pitch like that, he's going to, he's pitching a lot in the AL Central for, a long time. So yeah, it's a good series win for them. And it's kind of like, what, like, kind of showing up finally for the final series against the Royals. I think it's, kind of helped the Sox, the confidence booster, regardless of who you're playing. That helped out because in that very next series, probably one of the biggest series of the season so far, because obviously there's still a few more games left against the Twins, but that series against the Twins over the weekend, and you mentioned you were at all three games. I mean, all three games, regardless of like, it being a blowout, obviously we'll get to that cease almost no hitter, but that, all those three games felt like postseason games. It felt like the Twins knew what they had to do. The Sox knew what they had to do. And let's start with that first game. That first game in the ninth inning when the Sox, I believe they went into the bottom of the ninth down 3-2, or right, or was it 3-3?
Because Dahl hit that home run in the bottom of the eighth.
Yeah. There you go. Yeah.
On the first pitch, it was a curveball off a T-ball.
Yeah.
Air ball. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And then in the bottom of the ninth, they had the I believe it was the bases loaded. Jose Abreu was batting. Right.
Yep.
And then they had the whole situation, which I had a wedding over the weekend, and on Friday when we were at, like, after the rehearsal dinner, we went to the bar and we're watching the game, and I got plenty of friends that are Sox and they're watching that, and they're just like it was just hilarious because like when they saw the first or what they thought was a hit by pitch, right, where it hit off the knob of the bat, and everybody was celebrating, going crazy. I mean, even the Sox are celebrating, and like, I mean, I can only imagine that at the field, right? How was that?
Oh man, I've been to close to 20 Sox games this season. That was by far one of the craziest, if not craziest, games I've been to in the last 10 years at Guaranteed Rate Field. I must admit it to you. And I've been out of the close to 20 games I've been to, I've seen the White Sox get a walk-off win 3 times. And that was the third one. But that was a wild situation. You had a lot going on. Like if I could just go rewind, remember Andrew Vaughn got hit almost in the face, they went up and in on him, but with Lopez, and that's what brought the brawl and
the bench is cleared, right?
And stuff like that. And I was actually kind of happy to see that from the standpoint of it was the first time all year that I feel as though I saw the White Sox show some fight. Defending their brother, even though I don't think it was an intentional pitch.
Yeah.
I think, with Andrew Vaughn having been pitched up close and high inside a lot recently, having taken a hit to the face in the Cleveland series a couple of weeks ago, he took that personally. And you could tell, and that's what brought the benches out. I like Miguel Cairo defending his players, something that I thought that Tony La Russa should have done more of and had opportunities to do. It was just a positive thing to see the fight in the life. And I think what it did was, I think it brought an energy in that ballpark that was playoff-like. And it definitely felt like a playoff game from start to finish. But to see that and when they overturned the Abreu hit by pitch, and you could see that it hit off his back when they showed the replay, it was unfortunate. But I still had a feeling being in the building, like, with the way that team had responded, for their brother Andrew Vaughn, I just had a feeling like no matter what, they're gonna find a way to pull it out. It just, at that moment, I felt like Grandal getting that home run. That was the biggest hit of his season thus far. It's been so many times where he's had opportunities whether with men on base, 2 outs or not, team down, and he hasn't cashed in. And to cash in that situation, man, it sent the shockwave through the ballpark. Like, I mean, it made it feel like it really did feel like game 1 of an ALCS series. It really did.
Yeah, no, and I think kind of Jorge Lopez, the pitcher for the Twins, in that situation, because it's come back to me now, but like that situation where he hits Andrew Vaughn and Vaughn gets or almost hits Andrew Vaughn, but like I get the situation from both ends. Obviously, nobody wants to almost get hit or get hit regardless. I understand that in the moment you're probably going to be pissed, but I'm just like, man, like Lopez should have just kept his mouth shut, been like, because he didn't mean it. Obviously, he didn't mean to do that. But I think Lopez should have not said anything, because that's probably what got the White Sox bench going, because he would just I think he got mad. He was mad probably that he almost did that or whatever. But I'm just like, man, if you didn't mean to do it, like, what's the point? But it is what it is. But yeah, crazy ending. Sox obviously ended up winning that game and ended up winning the series. And I mean, just overall, that like just a huge series win for them. Obviously in game 3, Giolito, he pitched well, but it didn't end up going well for the Sox as a whole. They lost 5-1 in that one. But hopefully that Giolito, like I was talking to one of my buddies at Sox, and I'm like, maybe this is kind of what gets Giolito going, is getting some positive innings in there, and because it's like you always know what you're getting with Giolito when he's on, right? It's like he's gonna give up a few runs, gonna give up a couple runs, but guess what? He's gonna pitch 6 or 7 innings and strike out 8 or 9 guys. So that if that's but the thing is that he can't be giving up kind of like what he had his outing before, where he gave up 7 runs, and that's kind of the Giolito we've seen a little bit throughout the season. And the Giolito, I think his stuff is so good. So it's like we hope next year he can kind of bounce back, and he can use this September if it's it's a positive one to do that. But going into that Seattle series, I knew that and it was going to be a tricky series, just because it's always West Coast is always annoying for Midwest teams, and even the East Coast, especially East Coast teams. But going out there and then now playing a very, very talented team like the Mariners, I really thought because after game one was again another playoff like game, and another game where Sox players stepped up. I mean, AJ Pollock, who's been great in the second half. I mean, he's got an 812 OPS compared to that 601 in the first half. He's been great, and he's always great against left-handers, which of course that's why he started and hit. I believe he hit third that game, if I'm mistaken. But he hits 983 against left-handers. So his OPS, sorry, 983 OPS. But yeah, kind of what did you see in not only the whole series, but in these games, especially the third one? The third one, obviously, we talked a little bit before we got on, was the Mariners, their miscues lead to a Sox win. They took advantage. They were down by 4, and they ended up getting that series win 2-1. What did you see overall from this series that kind of transferred from that Minnesota series that helped the Sox get a series win?
I saw a team, find life again over the last 4 days. Like I said, I was at the ballpark from Thursday through Sunday. And when I went, they were 3-1 in those games. And I saw a team that took that energy from Friday night and still in a game that, I'll be honest, they really, you could make an argument for them not having won that game. Minnesota was pretty much in control of that game for the most part. Granted, the White Sox did rally back. They had some chances, didn't cash in. But with Grandal's home run in the 8th, combined with the walk-off win and the fashion in which it came in, I think it ignited the energy in that ball club, man, and they carried that to Seattle. I think Andrus getting that home run over the outstretched arms of Mitch Haniger, who made a hell of an effort to try and corral that ball out in right field. Elvis Andrus, he's hit, like, I believe 5 out of his last 11 home runs this season in T-Mobile Park. I just saw a team, man, with some life, man, and really wanting to fight. And I think a lot of that is being led by acting manager Miguel Cairo. I think the players in that locker room have kind of been able to exhale a little bit, even in the midst of a division race where they're playing free. I really feel like this team is playing with a nothing to lose attitude. It's right now. They can easily be moping, but the fact that they're 2.5 games out and still got a fighting chance, to save their season, I think that's a big deal. But I saw a team just carrying momentum, getting big hits in big situations, taking advantage of miscues by Seattle pitching, and seeing guys just come together collectively, man. Like what Eloy Jimenez did today, Jose Abreu a guy that's in his mid-30s, he's hustling and bustling, and he's playing hurt. I watch this team every day, and he's playing hurt, but he's always hustling. And to beat out a double play, which led to, Eloy's 2-run home run to cut that lead in half with 2 outs. That was a key part of the ball game, and I think that really changed the momentum of that ball game, and it made those guys in that clubhouse believe, hey, we come back and win this thing, which they did.
Yeah, no, and that's the thing too. Like when you look at guys like Jose Abreu, who like at his age and the type of season he's having, underrated. I mean, like I feel like nobody talks about him enough. I know he won an MVP in 2020, but regardless, like the way he's been playing this year, it's just been not talked about enough. I mean, the guy at his age, doing what he's doing, I think is super impressive. And kind of just where I like where would the Sox be without him, right? Because it's like that little moment after last season where you kind of like we're like, man, are they going to resign? What's going to go on? Are they going to move on from? No, they kept them, and that was obviously the best decision they could have made because of how they played. And also another thing and I saved it for last because I think it was kind of like the highlight of the weekend in that series win is Dylan Cease's near no hitter against the Twins. Obviously you were there. So like, how was that? What did you think about his? I mean, it's just classic Dylan Cease. Obviously, it kind of is, obviously just it was unfortunate he couldn't close it out. And of course, it happened to be Luis Arraez that gets the hit. Of course, it's that guy. So kind of walk us through like how that game went.
Man, that was the highlight of the series. Just keeping track of how many pitches he had thrown through the first 5 innings. The game was moving so fast, man. Like you look up, it was a 6:15 start. It's around close to 7:30, and you're through 5.5 innings. And you're looking at the pitch count, you're like, man, this guy's only thrown 50 pitches through the first 5 innings. And you don't want to say anything to the fans. But the guy next to me who was sitting by me said, he's got a no-hitter. I said, man, I know. I said, I've been paying attention since like the first 3 innings, and I've seen all zeros on the board. I said, I know that he walked a guy. I said, man, he didn't even strike out a lot of batters. That was the crazy thing. And he was getting better as the game went along. And the one thing that just was remarkable about it was being in there in that ballpark. You could tell once he got to the 6th inning and how he was leaving that mound. And then at the 8th, when he was like, raising his hands up, trying to cheer up the crowd and feeding off of it, you could tell he knew that no-hitter was intact and that he had a chance. Granted, yeah, he lost it against Luis Arraez, but Luis Arraez is, the best hitter in the American League, average-wise, batting over 300. That was going to be a tough out regardless, but I do respect the fact that Cease went at him, and he went at him with his best pitch. He just made a hit. You just have to tip your cap to the guy, but it was a hell of a performance. And to me, it was a Cy Young performance to do that on a national stage with the lights on you and MLB on Fox on hand for the coverage. I think that was one of the best games I've been to in the last 10 years. And I was at the Gavin Floyd no-hitter. I mean, or near no-hitter in 2008 when he went 8 1/3 against Minnesota and gave up a double to Joe Mauer. So I wish I could have saw a no-hitter, but you would take a complete game, especially a complete game from a pitcher like Dylan Cease, which, as great as he is, has shown recently an ability to go into extended innings of work, which we haven't seen from him on a consistent basis. His last 2 starts, he's gone at least 8 or better, and he's only given up 3 hits. He's only given up 3 hits. And with 2 of those hits being home runs, of course, against Arizona, which was a no decision. I mean, the guy's just simply remarkable, man. That was definitely the highlight of the weekend, and he deserves all the praise that he's getting for it. And hopefully, he can continue to build off of this, because I don't think this will be the last time we'll get a notification saying, hey, Dylan Cease has a no-hitter through 8 innings. I really don't.
Yeah, I mean, he's those types of guys that he's one of those types of guys that every time he goes out there, you think, he might throw a no-hitter to net. It's that type of elite stuff that, you think, every night you could do something special. And you know what I was thinking too is like, I wanted to see what you thought. And it's like, you kind of alluded to it with the Luis Arraez thing and about him giving his best stuff. But some people were like, man, he should have just walked him there. He should have whatever. But I'm like, no, I don't think so. No, look, you talk to Dylan Cease. I guarantee you, I'm willing to bet a lot of money that he would have said, you know what? No, I want to get this guy for the last out of a no-hitter. Can you imagine how great that would be if he got with the best hitter in the AL out? Like, no, yeah, he's not gonna like be like, oh, I want to get this no-hitter. No. He's gonna go at it the best, with his best stuff, right?
Absolutely. And a couple of people were saying that in my row where I was sitting off of down the third base line. A lot of people saying, well, he should have walked him. I'm like, no, I appreciate the competitor in Dylan, man, trying to go after the best hitter in the American League average wise, not named Aaron Judge, of course. Yeah. You just gotta tip your cap. I mean, it happens. But he had a hell of an outing and he got better by the game. One thing that impresses me the most about Dylan Cease this season is he's dominating the league with only 2 pitches, a fastball and a slider. And I don't know if it's because of like the ear high release point or what, but like these guys cannot catch up to it. And you can see it. Like it's very rare that you can find a pitcher in baseball who when you go up there, he's gonna give you a chance to win every single day. Or you just look at the rotation for the series, you like, oh, Dylan Cease pitching, that's a win. I don't think White Sox fans have had an ace of this level since Chris Sale. And to have this ace on their franchise right now in the thick of a playoff race makes you wonder, hey, if this team takes care of business and do what they're supposed to do and win back-to-back AL Central championships, hey, maybe they can go on a run. Because in October, as we all know, it comes down to pitching. You're going to need guys like that with the money on the line.
Yeah, and that's the thing, like, with like all the Sox have to do is get healthy, get those starters in, because really, you see how Lance Lynn has been pitching, and I was going to mention him a little bit too, is how he's been, 2.45 ERA in August. Again, another thing that hasn't been talked about enough, just because of how he started when he came back from the IL, is it's very important for him to get back into being Lance Lynn, because it's like I've been saying this for the whole season. No matter what happens, the Sox sneak into the playoffs. You're telling me you're going to go into postseason with Cease, Lynn, Kopech, 1, 2, 3. Come on, like anything can happen, and even the bullpen can. The Hendricks obviously had a rough couple months to start the season. He's obviously found his way back. The only thing with him, and I've been talking about it too, is with Hendricks, is that it's been a little risky, right? Like he puts himself in a situation. It kind of reminds me of Colomé, how Colomé was even in his All-Star season. He gets guys on base, and that's the thing. The problem there, because a lot of people are like, oh, well, he gets him out. He gets out of this situation. But the only problem there is that in the postseason, you can't give like teams like the Yankees, teams like the Astros, guys on base in the 9th inning, because it's just like their lineups are so stacked that you get guys up there and they could end the game. So that's the risky part. But I think that hopefully they'll be able to figure it out before come season end. And you kind of mentioned a little bit about it too, about just in general about the West Coast trip, but I think it's also very important the Sox at least take 3 out of 4 in this Oakland series, not only to assert dominance on a team like the A's, but just to kind of keep it going. I think even if they split the series 2-2, it's not necessarily like, the end of the world. Obviously, that could hurt them in the standings, but it's playing Oakland and playing in the West Coast, whatever. But yeah, 3 out of 4, right, is probably, what you're hoping for. Right?
Absolutely. Oakland has been a very tough place, over the last 20 plus years for the White Sox. And to me, the objective is to get 3 out of 4. You want to win every single series from this point forward. The margin for error is small. You're in the middle of a pennant race. You're 2.5 games back as of right now. You got to capitalize on these type of teams. Oakland is last place in the West. Granted, Oakland has some young fiery pieces. Guys are going to compete. Guys trying to compete not only for jobs, but roster spots going into next season. If not with Oakland or other rosters, league-wide, you have to take these series. And, you talk about the White Sox pitching staff with guys like Lance Lynn and Cease and Kopech. Johnny Cueto, man. 36 years old, 18 out of his 20 starts, I believe he's went 6 innings or more. He's gotten to the point now where I have to just call him Mr. Consistent, because every time he steps out, that you're going to get at least 6 innings or more out of him. You're going to get at least 3 earned runs or less. And he's always going to give you a chance to be in a ball game, man. And what impresses me the most with Cueto is that he doesn't have the overpowering stuff that he once had in his prime when he was in Cincinnati, but he's still able to get guys out. He's still able to change up his speeds and get in and out of jams and get, timely ground balls into double plays. This guy's just been incredible, not only on the field for this Sox team, but off the field as a leader. I think he's played a big role in Reynaldo Lopez's development out of the bullpen. And you can tell that this team, when he starts just going to games, they rally around that guy, man.
Yeah, and no, that's the thing too. Like in that game, the Sox lost against the Mariners, the only game they lost, game 2. Yeah, Logan Gilbert, outdueled Cueto, and Cueto just, pitched his heart out too, and it was unfortunate. Sox weren't able to, give him any runs. But yeah, and this thing, I left him off the list. But yeah, having him as say a number 4 on the list, and depending on how they feel, how Giolito goes into October, and all that. Even then, if they say Giolito has a great month and Cueto comes out of the bullpen, or they could switch him off and stuff like that. I mean, that's great experience, whether it be out of the bullpen or whatever it is. But yeah, it's going to be really great to see how this season ends for the Sox. Got a whole month to go, and plenty of time for them to get to continue this streak and to be able to take down the Twins and Guardians. But yeah, as of right now, as we sit here on Wednesday, they're currently I believe it is 2.5 games back.
Yep.
And the Twins are 2 games back, so it's going to go down to the wire, and as it should, as it's been the whole season. So hopefully the Sox can get it done. We'll shift our focus now to the Cubs, who are 57-78 on the opposite end of the spectrum when it comes to postseason contention. They went to Toronto, where they lost 2 out of 3 against the Blue Jays, and then they were swept out of St. Louis. As much as they've been playing great in the second half, this kind of was more of like the last 2 weeks, I should say, we're kind of bringing this team back down to earth as to how they should be playing. But for example, that Toronto series was cool to for them to play up there and kind of get a peek at of what a core looks like for a team like the Blue Jays with Bichette and Guerrero and stuff like that. So it's good to see that they ended up salvaging at least one game there in the finale, 7-5. And then in that series against St. Louis, like I've been saying it all season, and that the Cubs play the Cardinals and the Brewers well. They beat the Brewers in the season series. They play the Cardinals well too, but this weekend it was really just the Cardinals outclassing the Cubs, just plain and simple. It was absolutely no competition whatsoever. In game 1, 8-0, and then game 2, the Cubs took an early lead, but Drew Smyly just couldn't contain Paul Goldschmidt and company. They lost 8-4, and then in the finale is the one I really want to talk about too, because that finale, that game was a pitcher's duel, going into the late innings, and Albert Pujols in his last at bat, which is a pinch hit plate appearance against the Cubs, he hits a 2-run shot, and that is the game-winning hit. I mean, that guy lives for the big stage. Obviously, his whole career, he's been doing this type of stuff. And, as much as I've hated playing the Cubs playing against him, it's literally been an honor to watch Albert Pujols play, 20 times a year. Obviously not for the last 10 years, but for the most of when I watched him, growing up, I felt like every time the Cardinals played the Cubs, it was, he was going to hit 2-3 home runs. The dude launched every time at Wrigley. So, kind of what did you think, and what do you think about his overall chase for that 700?
Well, it's just remarkable, man. Albert Pujols has been playing in this league since I was 8 years old. So I came up, watching him. And even though I'm a White Sox fan at heart, I always liked those teams from St. Louis back in the early 2000s with Pujols, Edmonds, Scott Rowland, La Russa at the helm, and Edgar Renteria and those guys. So it's cool to see him riding off in the sunset where his career all started, a place where he's won 2 championships and has a chance, to do something that most guys don't get a chance to do in this league, and that's his 700 home runs. And it's been cool to see him go on this power surge. It's been cool to follow him throughout this whole journey and to see, how he pulled the upset, the home run derby, beating Kyle Schwarber in round one and stuff. So I'm very happy to see Albert in this position, and in this position, not only in St. Louis, but in a position where they're playing for a world championship. They lead the division in the Central right now, and they have a chance. And he's back reunited with his guy Yadi Molina, who's gonna be, wrapping up his career with a nice ribbon bow, and both of them, eventually will be in Cooperstown with one another together. So I think it's real cool to see. And I hope he gets it. I think everybody in the baseball universe is rooting for him because if it's anybody that deserves it, it's Pujols, man. To be able to do this 20 plus years, put your body through the rigors of the grind, 162 games, man, that's incredible.
No, yeah, I mean it's one of those things that you hate to say it, but you just admire it so much. Like even as a Cubs fan, like man, it would be so awesome to have like those types of players in your team for that long. And even if Pujols left, came back, to have Wainwright, Yadi, Molina there for their whole careers. I mean, I remember, being in sixth grade watching that 06 World Series. That was the first World Series I watched where I watched the whole season. So I knew all the narratives and stuff, and kind of seeing what the Cardinals did, with, after, they persevered that whole season and have Wainwright close out that World Series. And to see what he's done now is just, it's awesome. I mean, so definitely I hope nothing but the best for a guy like Albert Pujols. Obviously, I don't want the Cardinals to win the World Series, but they definitely have a shot, because it's one of those things where like I've said this on another episode before. It's like the Midwest as a whole has underachieved, right? And they've been very disappointing when it comes to just AL Central, NL Central. I don't think any of those teams are going to win the World Series, but if I had to choose one team, like it'd be like, okay, they can win the World Series, it'd probably be the Cardinals, just because they always in October. We saw it the year they made it to the NLCS when no one really expected. I think that was 2019, I believe, where they lost the Nats.
Mm-hmm.
So like it's just the way they are, and when you really play them, you're like, man, they really are fully equipped top to bottom as the best team in the Central, let alone the Midwest. But I mean Goldschmidt, Arenado. I mean, you got MVP candidates, and you have a nice rotation there with Wainwright, Mikolas, and all that. So it's going to be really tough to beat them. But we'll get a little more about the NL talk later. But first, I also did want to mention another thing that happened. Another great highlight of the week was the Cubs They started a series against the Reds. They're currently playing game 2, and getting smacked 6-1. But in the first game, Cubs ended up winners 9-3. Behind Ian Happ's home runs from Ian Happ and Seiya Suzuki. But the highlight of that game was Hayden Wisniewski, who debuted to a great performance, nearly flawless, 5 shutout innings, 2 hits, and 8 strikeouts in the 9-3 Cubs win. And that's a guy who we got in that Scott Efros deal. So that was, and the thing is, like, obviously at this point we got, Cubs fans got nothing to look forward to when it comes to wins and losses. But when it comes to player development and seeing guys like, Wisniewski and like,
Morrell.
Christopher Morrell. Yeah. Christopher Morrell, seeing guys like that, just kind of like, even Nick Madrigal, and I was going to mention him too. It's like seeing guys like that we haven't seen in the lineup that long, whether it be injury or whether it just be they're rookies and stuff like that. Seeing that development has been, the plus for this season and plus to end the season. But yeah, when it comes to Wisniewski, that's a guy that I think I could see in the bullpen in the future and kind of helping us out, because he's got that stuff. He's a little quirk type thing, like, with his movements and stuff like that. So I like his stuff, and he was really nasty last night. So hopefully those are signs, it's a sign of things to come. Yeah, so I wanted to get your opinion on kind of the young core, the young guys, and how they've been playing in the second half, because they've been impressive. But kind of from an outsider's perspective, from another team, like, what are your thoughts on the young Cubs, like Wisniewski and, kind of like Madrigal and Morrell and all that?
Well, Wisniewski, I was impressed with his debut last night. I thought he did a good job showcasing his slider, had good command of his changeup and his cutter. His fastballs checked out and looked real good as well. And he strutted around the mound like he owned the place on Addison and Clark. So, I mean, I like that performance from him. And I don't know what his long-term standing will be, whether or not you will see him being used as a starter, as a reliever. But he looks like a guy who, no matter where you use him, if he continues to pitch like he did last night against Cincinnati, he could be a guy that's a centerpiece in your rotation, be it as a starter or reliever. It's just good to see the young player development and guys getting better by the game, guys competing, guys hustling, making winning plays. That's how you develop a winning program, and that's how you get yourself back on track to compete not only in the NL Central, you can make a push for a playoff berth sooner rather than later, and eventually get back to the World Series like you did 6 years ago. So it's always good to see that.
Yeah, and I think that's also like another thing that what Nico Horner has said, or that, this helps when it comes to free agents. They're playing better in the second half, makes it more attractive for free agents to want to come play here. For example, like a Trey Turner, who's been quoted on saying, he wants to know where the Cubs are going, what direction they're going explicitly. He wants to know what's going on. So I think that's very important in the direction. It's very important, especially the fact that, they mentioned earlier this year that they're going to cut ties with Jason Hayward. So that frees up a lot of money. And that's going to, open it up, and maybe even they can get a free agent next year. So I think that's something that they're definitely trying to do. And it would be interesting to see where the Cubs go from here. But, when you see, the young guys like, Brendan Davis, Pete Armstrong, those guys may, if they can come up as soon as next year, I think it's going to be a good look for the Cubs and on the free agent side in general, even going into like 2024. So with that being said, I know, for example, a guy like Nick Madrigal too, who was part of that, Craig Kimbrell trade. He had a great August, concluded it with 715 OPS, but had a 300 average and a 378 on base percentage. So I think those, he doesn't slug too much. So he definitely, raises that OPS with the average and on base percentage. And he's kind of playing a little more like he played when he was on the Sox, and when, there's good stretches with the Sox, a vintage Nicky two strikes. So hopefully that keeps going. Christopher Morrell is going to play a little bit more of third base. I know Jed Hoyer and David Ross said that they like him as a super utility man in the future. So I think that's good to see. He's got a cannon of an arm. So the way he plays, it's as much as you could put him in the lineup, I think it works out for them. So Wilson Contreras is going to the 10-day IL with an ankle injury. And I saw a tweet that kind of put it in perspective a little more, that, he went on the 10-day IL with only 20 games left in his Cubs career. So that's kind of rough to think about as he goes into free agency. And Cody
how
Hoyer,
many of them gonna be at home? Because I know the fans are really.
That's true. That's true. I know that they play this weekend. So that's, if you play a few more games this weekend, I don't remember if they end at home. But okay. There's plenty. Yeah, he's gonna play. Definitely gonna. Let's see. They got. Yeah, they'll have a chance, to say goodbye to him, because they got. What is this? 6 of the last 9 games are at home.
Okay.
So they got time to say goodbye to Wilson. Yeah,
well, that's a plus.
Yeah.
That's the plus, because one thing I do believe Wilson will do, no matter how hurt he is, I do believe he'll give it his all and try to play, 6 out of those last 9 out, or maybe, not as many as he can. His body allows him to, because he's been a first class act for you guys, and he's a guy that I'm pretty sure a lot of teams are gonna have their eyes out on. I mean, even I watch him as a White Sox fan, and I say, man, that's the type of catcher you want on your ball club, for sure. Not only with his bat, but his leadership and his veteran presence. I think he's been a big part of the young guys developing over there as well. It's not every day where you're able to have a veteran who's been there, done that, still in the fold. He's the last, guy that's still around from the championship era besides Ross, managing. So that would be dope to see.
Yeah, and it's one of those things too where, like, look, if I think they're going to re-sign Hap. I don't think they're going to re-sign Contreras. Hap's got one more year on his deal, but I think Contreras, I just think if they did re-sign him, for example, I mean, and say you bring up Brendan Davis and Pete Armstrong next year, I mean, just think about it. You got Contreras, Hap, Brendan Davis, Crow Armstrong, Madrigal, and Horner. All of a sudden you have a pretty good looking lineup. And then, on top of that, adding a free agent or two. So who knows? Who knows what happens? It's going to be really fascinating to see what the Cubs do from here on out. They have one more game against Cincinnati and then 3 against San Francisco at home. Hopefully they can finish off the homestand on a good note. Shifting over now to the rest of Major League Baseball, and I wanted to ask you this because I feel like in the AL it's pretty easy, right? The Astros are the best team in the AL, arguably in Major League Baseball. But when it comes to the NL, I feel like it's not so clear cut. You have the Mets, the Dodgers, and the Braves. Obviously, when you look at it on paper, it's easy to say the Dodgers because of the record and just how nasty the record is. But you look at the Mets and the Braves; they're clawing their way to the top in the NL East. They're tied at the moment. But what say you? Who is the best team in the NL as we sit here right now?
Well, as you said, if we're going off of paper, it has to be the Los Angeles Dodgers from top to bottom. That lineup, man, is a nightmare. David Roberts, excuse me. He has a fool's gold of options he can go to at any given time, any moment. Pitchers, how you want it, who you want, he has it. But as of right now, I would honestly have to say it's the Atlanta Braves. They've won 7 out of their last 10 games. Spencer Strider, in my opinion, is the National League Rookie of the Year at this point. He's been pitching 6 innings or more consistently. I think the last 2+ starts he's done it. Pitching, only giving up 2 hits a night at best. Striking guys out left and right. Stuff is looking filthy. You got that with a Michael Harris, another guy who could easily be considered for the National League Rookie of the Year award. A guy who I thought had the award in his hands until Strider came on as a recent, with his hot stretch at the mound. And then you got Ronald Acuna, you got Dansby Swanson. This team, they got so much young talent. Austin Riley, and it's something about when the season gets to the home stretch, they catch lightning in a bottle, man. They just get hot. And even though they were 10 games back, it was a team that you can never count out. Like you knew they would be in the thick of it. Whether they get in as a wild card or an Eastern Division winner remains to be seen. But Atlanta's going to be there. And then you got Kenley Danson in the ninth to close things down, who been a veteran closer, been there, done that, won a ring in LA, been to multiple World Series and won National League pennants. Like that team is dangerous. The team is very dangerous, and right now I have to consider them as the best team in the National League because they're the hottest team in the National League, to proven otherwise.
Yeah, no, and you're right when it comes to what Dave Roberts has over there. It's ridiculous. I mean, it's like the just the fact that how nonchalant they were about the whole Walker Buehler thing. It's like as much as he didn't pitch like Walker Buehler this year. Obviously, I think when he got injured, I think he had like over a 4 ERA. I wasn't really worried about it. I think he might have been trying to pitch injured, honestly, for the most part. Regardless, they were very nonchalant and whatever. We got Dustin May, so they have a plethora of players everywhere, and I think that just shows what type of team they are and what type of organization they are. They build it so well. And I think it's kind of one of the main reasons they didn't want to trade for Soto. I think they almost did and they considered it, but I just don't think they wanted to let go. They didn't want to let go of that many assets. Understandably so. They already have enough. So it's going to be, another battle against them, no matter who plays them in the playoffs. But yeah, I think when it comes down to it, I can't argue with that on the Brave side of things. When it comes to the Mets, I mean, I think when you look at that roster and you just see them play, they play like, a team that's ready to win a World Series. They have guys like McNeil and Brandon Nimmo. Those guys just looked at the guys you need in a 7-game series, right? They're going to go all out. Saw Brandon Nimmo made that great play against the Dodgers the other day. And just the way he plays, the way they might not put up a 950 OPS, but they're going to go out there and, give it their all every game. And that's the type of player you need to sacrifice whatever it takes in a 7-game series. And I think they got it. And I mean, I know Miles would agree with you when it comes to, the Braves part, because he definitely was picking the Braves to win the East in our prediction show. Just because a lot of teams or a lot of people doubted them. They said, oh, they're not going to be able to repeat, let alone repeat in the East because of how good the Mets are going to be. And I was one of those doubters when it came to the Mets in the sense that I didn't think they'd be as good as they are now. I just thought DeGrom was probably going to be injured again. I thought Scherzer wasn't going to be, as good as he has been. It's my fault for downing a Hall of Fame pitcher right there, Cy Young Award winner. So, and I think he just went on the IL recently, right? Mm-hmm. So, but it's going to be I think whoever wins from that NL East, is really going to have a great opportunity to play in the NLCS against the Dodgers, and that's going to be one of the best series of the year. So hopefully that turns out. But yeah, I think when you look at them on paper, it's a flip of the coin with all those teams just because of how good and talented those rosters are. And I think it might be one of the more competitive years in the NL that we've had recently, right? I think it's like we've seen, the NL's had a lot of luck in the World Series, understandably so. But I think when you look at the rosters and you look at how talented these teams are, it might be one of the more talented years for the NL in general. Also, one last thing before we go, kind of wanted to get your opinion. Obviously, Aaron Judge is nearing the AL record in home runs. He's got 55. I think he hit 55 today. If he gets that, first of all, let's just say he gets cold and he doesn't get that record, right? If he doesn't get the record, is he still your MVP? If he gets the record, does that change that? How do you see it?
I think Aaron Judge is the MVP regardless. He's been on the best team in the league for the majority part of the year. And even when the Yankees offense has gone cold, like they have over the last month, and been inconsistent throughout various stretches, Aaron Judge has always been the main consistent plug for this Yankees offense. We saw it in the Tampa Bay series last weekend. Guys weren't hitting, executing in key situations. Aaron Judge comes up to the plate. He's giving you a fighting chance every game, and keeping you within games just off of one single swing. And it's been majestic to get a chance to watch him play up close in person, as I did earlier this season as a fan, and to be able to see what the run that he's going on, because in this era where you got so many electric pitchers, guys coming out the bullpen left and right, able to throw 98, 100, time and time again, and he's able to consistently sit in and lock in and knock it out the park left and right like he has, taking a gamble on himself and passing and turning down an extension to re-up with the Yankees to get an even greater payday, which we know is coming this upcoming winter. He's the biggest winner on the field right now to me in the American League. He's damn sure gonna be the biggest winner off the field when it's time to do negotiations at these MLB winter meetings.
Yeah, I mean, it almost doesn't even cross. It didn't cross my mind in the recent couple months. The fact that he's gonna be a free agent this year.
Yeah,
I mean, whoever signs him is, especially he's gonna break that record. I mean, he's gonna have a blank check. I mean, that's gonna be a crazy signing. So whoever gets him in. A lot of, I personally, and I've said this before, I personally hope he stays in New York because I think New York always needs a player like him in the lineup. I mean, even if they have Stanton, I understand that, but just a type of star, in New York, I want him to stay there. So hopefully it all works out there, but it's sign him. But obviously every team's going to have Adam, and definitely host him and consider to have him in the lineup. But all right, that should definitely do it for this episode. Gabe, thanks for filling in for Miles. We'll see you again real soon. I know for sure hopefully the Sox make it to the postseason. We'll have you on regardless to get your opinion on the other teams in general. And thanks for coming on, man. Really appreciate it.
Pleasure to be on as always with you, Saul. Great talking baseball, and hopefully, Chicago get a team into the playoff race and hunt, and the White Sox, can continue to take care of business. But either way, it's always a pleasure talking baseball, and I'm looking forward to what happens these next 4 more weeks we got left for the season, man.
All right. So that'll wrap things up for this episode of the At Bat Baseball Podcast presented by Warren Media for Saul Rodriguez and Gabe Wilkins. All right, everyone, take it easy. We'll see you next week.